Okay, so we're diving deep today
Think deep.
into some really fascinating stuff that you, our listeners, have brought to us.
Yeah, you've pointed us towards something pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's all about kind of looking at business and work.
Yeah, a whole different way of looking at business and how we work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the kind of stuff that's going to lead to some of those like light bulb moments.
Moments.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
those are good.
Those are the best. And I think it has the potential to be immediately useful,
Yeah,
for sure.
Sure. So you've given us the book Rework,
Yes.
and it's by the founders of 37 Signals.
Right.
The people behind Basecamp.
Please, Cam. Yeah.
And what I think is really cool right off the bat is their own story.
I think so, too.
I mean, since 1999, they've built this consistently profitable internet company.
Right.
And here's the thing.
Small team,
Yeah, a deliberately small team.
which is so interesting.
Just 16 people at the time of writing this book. So
Right.
they've really kind of like blazed their own trail and challenged a lot of the conventional wisdom out there.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be doing today in this deep dive.
That's what we do here.
Is really unpacking
forget.
rework and that core argument that it's time to ditch those outdated ideas of running the business.
Right, because so much of it is so unnecessarily complicated.
Yes.
And really, they present a compelling case for a new reality
A new reality.
where success is achievable with less.
With less.
Less than we've been told.
Yeah, way less than we think we need. Our mission today is to distill their insights.
Extract those practical takeaways
Yeah.
on everything from progress to productivity,
Growth,
and
hiring,
hiring,
you
name
name
it.
all that good stuff. Ready to have your assumptions challenged?
Let's do it.
Okay, so they jump right in with this first core area of progress.
Progress.
And right away,
It's rework.
rework throws us a curveball.
Yeah, with this idea of embracing constraints.
Embracing constraints.
It's just wild.
And really, it's limitations aren't hurdles. They
Right.
can actually fuel creativity.
They can be the fuel to the
Yeah.
fire of creativity.
So let's unpack this a little bit because
Okay.
they give so many examples.
Yeah, they hit you with a lot of examples.
Like Shakespearean sonnets.
The strict structure of that.
Right.
Haiku.
Haiku limericks.
Lyrics.
Hemingway's spare language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
famously simple language.
Right. And it's like when you have boundaries,
Right.
you have to be more resourceful.
Yes, you have to be more inventive
Yeah.
within those boundaries.
So the core takeaway here,
For you listening.
don't see limitations as roadblocks,
Right.
but as a lens
Yes.
that forces you to focus and come up with innovative solutions.
I love that.
Right.
Think about what you can't do
Yeah.
and then brainstorm how to achieve your goals within those boundaries.
Exactly.
That's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens.
Sometimes.
And they have a bunch more examples.
Yeah. Tons.
Like The Price is Right,
Right.
which has been around for so long.
Decades.
Yeah.
Still going.
Still going strong.
And each game really boils down to
A simple question,
a surprisingly simple pricing question.
but it's engaging.
Right.
And then there's Southwest Airlines.
Southwest.
And they only use one model of airplane.
That Boeing 737
Yeah.
streamlines everything.
Right.
From maintenance to training, and
Yeah.
it leads to lower costs.
In a more efficient business.
A more efficient business.
Right. And I think it all comes back to
Starting small.
making the most of limited
And
resources.
especially when you're just beginning
Right.
or facing any kind of constraint.
It's almost like this idea of working backwards,
Right.
because we always think more resources, more possibilities.
Right. More is better.
Yeah.
But rework really flips that
Flips the script
on its head.
and it flows right into that next point.
Which is,
Build half a product,
yes,
not a half-assed product.
I love that.
So good.
So what's crucial here?
Is focusing on the essential core.
The essential core of what you're offering.
Yeah.
And launching it well.
Exceptionally well.
Yes.
Right. And not trying to do all the things
Right.
right from the start.
So many features.
Yeah.
That sometimes it just ends up being kind of a mediocre experience.
A mediocre experience for everybody.
Across the board.
Right. It's much better to have a solid functional core that delights users
Right.
than a bloated, buggy mess.
Right. That tries to do too much.
Yeah. And then start at the epicenter.
Yes.
Identify those most important aspects first.
What is the absolute core value?
Right.
Begin there
Yeah.
and strategically expand.
Okay. And very closely related to this is
Ignore the details early on.
ignore the details early on.
And they have this really cool analogy.
I love this analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about the Sharpie.
So imagine you're drawing
Yes.
and you're using a Sharpie,
Okay. Thick lines.
thick lines, big picture,
Okay.
and then you're using a fine-tipped ballpoint pen.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, in the early stages of any project, You want to be thinking in broad strokes,
Big picture.
like drawing with that Sharpie.
Right.
You're focused on the overall shape, the key lines,
Yeah.
the ballpoint pen.
You get bogged down.
Yeah, you get bogged down in those tiny little details.
Right.
You know, like obsessing over perfect shading or like, you know, dotted versus dashed lines.
Right. Those things don't matter.
They don't matter at this stage.
Yeah.
They even bring in this advice.
Walt Stanchfield,
Yes, from Walt Stanchfield,
amazing Disney animator.
renowned Disney animation instructor.
Yeah. And he would urge animators
To forget the detail.
at the beginning.
Yes,
That makes so much sense.
it does.
You can't refine tiny elements.
You got to have the fundamental form,
Yeah, you got to have the big picture.
the big picture.
And then there's this idea that making the call is making progress.
Yes,
I love how direct this is.
it's so decisive.
Yeah, taking action over deliberating endlessly.
I mean, so often we can get stuck.
In the weeds.
Right, and constantly postponing decisions. It just leads to like this pileup of decisions.
Yeah, they accumulate.
Exactly, and then they get overlooked.
Or they get rushed
Yeah,
at
exactly.
the last minute.
So rework really advocates for this.
Okay,
Swap out the phrase, let's think about it,
okay.
for let's decide on it,
I like that.
whenever possible.
Because it builds momentum.
Momentum.
Yeah, and each decision
Every little one.
is like laying another brick.
Another brick in your foundation.
And then to manage all the potential input.
Right. All those ideas.
They say be a curator.
Yes.
So how can our listeners apply this?
This is about consciously focusing on what matters.
And filtering out the noise.
Oh.
All that noise.
Yeah.
Because we live in this world where
You're just bombarded with information and opinions.
constantly. So really it's about figuring out
Discerning.
what matters from what doesn't.
Exactly.
And I think this all kind of leads to
Throwing less at the problem.
throwing less at the problem.
Which is something I need to work on.
Me too.
It's so tempting to just like throw everything.
At the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
But they encourage us to seek out.
Focused and direct solutions.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Okay.
Direct approach.
I think this next concept is huge.
It is.
Focus on what won't change.
What won't change?
Yeah.
So build your business.
Or your approach
Right.
around fundamental human desires.
Right. Desires and principles
Yeah.
that hold value for people.
Yeah.
Like speed,
Simplicity.
ease of use.
These are things that are important.
Yes, and that have underpinned 37 Signal's own success.
Right.
Or consider like the long-term appeal
Yeah.
of like reliability and affordability for
Yeah.
like the Japanese automakers.
Right. Those values have remained relevant for decades.
decades.
And not like fleeting trends.
Exactly.
You're establishing yourself on solid ground.
Solid, lasting ground.
Yeah. Instead of chasing the next shiny object.
That is going to disappear in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they offer this really memorable analogy.
Tone is in your fingers.
Tone is in your fingers. So good.
I love this one.
So how would our listener apply this?
Okay, so think of it like this.
Yeah.
You have a seasoned guitar player,
Okay.
and they're saying that their unique sound
Yes.
really comes from them,
Their style.
their inherent style,
Okay.
their approach.
Yeah.
Not just the fancy equipment.
Yeah.
You could give two people the same tools.
Right.
They're going to create different results.
Totally a different thing.
And it's the same with your work.
Yeah.
Your core values,
Yeah.
the way you approach your work.
Define your efforts.
Yes, regardless of the specific tools you're using.
The human element is constant.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, another really fascinating idea.
Sell your byproducts.
Sell your byproduct.
It encourages you to be resourceful and creative.
Absolutely.
Think about those unexpected outputs or seemingly unused resources.
Yeah.
They can actually be
Opportunities.
for something new.
Yeah. Give us some examples.
Okay, so you have like lumber companies.
Okay.
And they sell their sawdust
Yeah.
for things like synthetic logs or particle board.
Okay.
And then you have 37 Signals.
Yeah.
And they created Getting Real,
Right.
which is a byproduct of their journey.
Yeah.
And then there's the band Wilco.
I love Wilco.
You too. They released a documentary about their album making process.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So-
And then going way back, Henry Ford
Right.
created Kingsford charcoal
Wow.
from wood scrap.
From his Model T production.
Yes.
So really what they're encouraging is to look for potential value
Yeah.
in unexpected places.
What seems like waste could be an opportunity.
Exact.
So think about your own potential byproducts.
Yeah.
What are you overlooking?
Okay, and finally, when it comes to progress, they urge us to
Launch now.
launch now.
Such an important one.
It is.
Especially for people who are perfectionists.
Oh, I feel very seen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm raising my hand.
Yeah. So this is about getting your product out there.
Quickly.
Quickly,
Yeah.
even if it's not perfect.
Even if it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And then you iterate.
Yes, you iterate and refine based on real-world feedback.
Okay, so it's better to launch and adjust
Absolutely.
than wait for this elusive perfect version.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
Which doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
I think we can all agree.
Yeah, we've all been there.
And they give some really compelling examples.
Oh, yeah, like Basecamp.
Okay.
They launched their service without a billing system.
Oh, no, Billy says.
They didn't have a billing system.
Wow.
But they figured it out.
I figured it out.
In the first month?
Or the shoe company Camper.
Okay.
They had this store called Walk in Progress.
I love that.
And the construction wasn't totally finished.
Okay.
But people loved it.
They loved the aesthetic.
They embraced it.
So really, it's just launch.
Launch now.
Get it out there.
And refine later.
Okay, so that was a lot on progress. Yeah, we covered a lot.
Let's talk about their thoughts on productivity.
Productivity.
Rework doesn't hold back.
Nope, they go right in.
Illusions of agreement.
Right.
Let's dive into this.
So they really take aim at
unnecessary documentation.
All those reports, those specs, the diagram.
With the diagrams, yes.
That consume so much time and effort,
right,
but don't really add value.
Or reflect the reality.
Yeah, of the final outcome.
So it's about getting real.
Getting real.
And favoring more tangible methods.
Yes, for communicating ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You ever get a document and you're like, uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Nodding along.
You're not really internalizing it.
Right, you're not really going to act on it.
So rework gives you these questions to consider before you create more paperwork.
Okay, what are they?
Are you adding value? And will this actually change behavior?
Will it change anything?
Or outcomes?
Right, prioritize doing over documenting.
Doing over doc.
Good. And this connects to
their advice on reasons to quit.
Reasons to quit.
Now, this might sound negative at first.
But it's not.
It's not.
Tell us why.
It's about being strategically decisive.
Okay.
You need to be aware
of what's not working.
Yeah. When a project isn't working,
right,
have the courage to stop.
Don't throw good time after bad work.
Don't throw good time after bad work.
It's so hard to do that, though.
It is.
Especially when you've invested so much.
Time, energy, resources.
You feel like you have to see it through.
Right. You feel like you've come this far.
But sometimes you just have to
walk away.
Cut your losses.
And pivot.
Yeah.
Adjust course.
Absolutely. And something that undermines so many of us.
Oh, yeah.
Is interruption.
Interruption is the enemy of productivity.
The enemy.
Yeah.
And it's a constant battle.
It's a constant battle.
In today's world.
Oh, yeah.
Where we're constantly connected.
Hyper connected.
Right. So tell us about this.
Oh, meetings, emails.
Instant messages. People stopping by your desk.
Right. It fragments our focus.
Yeah.
It hinders deep work.
Right.
It's like, sometimes you get your best work done.
Yeah.
When there are fewer distractions.
Like late at night.
Or early in the morning.
Yeah.
So what's the solution?
Create blocks of alone time.
Alone time where interruptions are minimized.
Yeah, I love that they even suggest things like
no talk Thursdays.
No talk Thursdays. That's amazing.
Carve out that space for uninterrupted concentration.
And speaking of things that disrupt flow,
meetings are toxic.
They don't hold back.
Nope.
Tell us about this one.
Okay. So they argue.
I'm sure everyone listening is nodding along.
I know.
Yeah.
They argue that so many meetings are just inefficient.
Yes.
Time wasters.
They lack agendas.
Right.
Too many people.
Too many people.
Drag on.
And for what?
And for nothing.
Exactly.
No tangible results.
No clear action items.
Right. And so rework really advocates for
minimizing meetings.
Minimizing meetings.
If you must have them.
Yeah. Keep them short. Keep them focused.
Have a purpose.
Have a purpose.
Now, here's another idea.
Okay.
Good enough is fine.
Yes.
This one's hard.
It's so hard.
Especially if you're
a perfectionist.
A perfectionist, yeah.
It's about embracing pragmatism.
Okay.
And avoiding that trap of perfectionism.
Right.
Which can lead to analysis paralysis.
And delays.
Delays.
You never launch anything.
Yeah, because you're always trying to reach this
ideal state of perfection.
That doesn't exist.
So embrace good enough.
Yes.
Meaning functional, valuable.
Allows for feedback.
Right. So prioritize progress over this mythical ideal.
Progress over perfection.
And I think this is really good advice for keeping morale high
Quick wins.
Quick wins. It's so important.
I love this idea.
Yeah, it's that positive impact.
On morale.
Yes, and the momentum that comes.
Yeah, it's from those early successes.
Small early successes.
So even if they're small,
yeah, they can provide a boost.
keep you going.
Keep the team energized.
As you tackle those larger challenges,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people need to hear this next point.
Don't be a hero.
Don't be a hero.
And this is so important because it challenges that whole workaholic mentality.
Right, which is so often glorified.
It is.
But they point out
The detrimental effects
of working too much
too many hours.
on your well-being,
Sustainability.
problem solving,
Yes.
team morale. Yeah, I mean, workaholics often,
To overcompensate.
yeah, they're compensating for a lack of efficient thinking.
By just working more.
More and more hours.
And it doesn't always lead to...
The best solution.
Right. It just creates...
Unnecessary crises.
And they have this really interesting idea.
The real hero
The real hero.
is the one who finds a faster,
More intelligent.
more efficient way to get things done.
And then they're home enjoying their life.
That's the real hero.
So it's not about brute force hours.
It's about smart work.
Sustainable effort.
Yeah.
And a really key component of this...
Is go to sleep.
Go to sleep. It seems so obvious.
It does.
But we don't do it.
We don't do it.
We sacrifice sleep.
We do.
And it's so important for your creativity,
For your morale.
for decision making.
Right, when you're sleep deprived.
Your brain just doesn't function
It doesn't function.
at its best.
And that leads to poor judgment.
And a lack of innovative thinking.
You can't come up with new ideas
Nope.
if you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And then speaking of things we often get wrong,
Your estimates suck.
your estimates suck.
Yes.
And I think anyone who has ever worked on a project
Big or small.
can relate to this.
Absolutely.
So tell us why our estimates are so bad.
Well, they're inaccurate,
Yeah?
especially for large projects.
Large and complex projects.
Right. They use those well-known examples.
Like Boston's Big Dig
the big digs.
and the Denver International Airport.
Both of those were completed.
Years behind schedule.
And billions of dollars over budget.
Billions.
Billions.
So their main recommendation
Is break things down
into
for
smaller chunks.
smaller, more manageable chunks.
Yeah.
They're easier to estimate.
Easier to estimate. And even if you're a little bit off,
It's not as bad.
it's not as damaging.
Right.
So then to avoid feeling completely overwhelmed,
By all those estimates.
and the to-do lists,
Right.
they advise.
Long lists don't get done.
Long lists don't get done.
So true.
So is
So
correct.
true. Instead of that endless to-do list,
Yeah.
focus on the next most important thing.
The next most important thing.
Yes.
Okay, and then finally in the realm of productivity,
Make tiny decisions.
these tiny decisions
It minimizes risk.
and commitment.
Yes.
So break it down for us.
Okay, so making small incremental decisions
Okay.
that are easy to reverse
Yeah.
is generally a better strategy.
Than making huge sweeping commitments.
Yet are hard to change.
Yeah.
Big decisions.
Can be influenced by ego
Eager, yeah.
and conviction
It's hard to admit.
when you're wrong.
Yeah, and then backtrack.
Tiny decisions.
Allow for flexibility,
Versus-
adaptability.
Less risk.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about progress and productivity.
We have.
Let's move on to evolution.
Evolution.
And their first point here is a powerful one.
Say no by default.
Say no by default.
Yeah.
And this is about
It's about prioritizing
protecting your time and attention
by saying no,
by default.
even to things that seem appealing.
Because saying yes too
It
often,
leads to overcommitment,
Yeah.
fragmented focus,
and it prevents you from
dedicating energy to what matters.
to what matters most.
Exactly.
And they even challenge.
Customer is always right.
That's a big one to challenge.
It is.
And what they say is,
You should listen to customer feedback,
yes.
but don't blindly implement every request,
Yeah.
especially if it compromises your value.
Or the simplicity of your offering.
Right. And they use the example of ING Direct.
Okay.
They said no to all these complex financial products
Okay.
to maintain simplicity.
And straightforwardness.
Yes.
Okay, so be
It's-
honest.
Be honest with yourself.
Realistic about your capacity.
Yeah.
Stay true to your vision.
Yes.
And this leads to a really interesting distinction.
In-store good versus at-home good.
In-store good versus at-home good.
I love this one.
I love this too, and it's such a great way to think about
Product development.
and customer satisfaction.
Yes.
So explain this to our listeners.
Yeah, so in-store good
Yes.
are those products that are flashy,
Okay.
feature-rich,
Yeah.
exciting when you first see them.
In the store.
Yeah, like in a showroom.
Yeah.
But then you get them home.
And they disappoint.
Yeah, they fall short.
And they don't deliver
Right.
Home good?
At home good are the products that might not have,
All the bells and whistles?
they might not have that initial wow factor,
Yeah.
but they consistently deliver value.
Yeah.
They provide a positive experience.
And they grow on you
Yes.
the more you use them.
Those are the products that people recommend to
Right.
their friends.
They become loyal. So it's about long-term satisfaction.
Yes.
And sustained value over hype.
And superficial features.
Absolutely. And to stand out in the marketplace.
Pick a fight.
Pick a fight.
Yeah.
And we don't mean literally.
We don't mean like actually get in a fist fight,
We don't mean get in a fist fight.
but have a point of view.
A strong point of view.
Yeah. Even if it's polarizing.
So tell us more.
So it's about having strong convictions.
And a clear stance.
Even if some people disagree,
Yeah.
it's about standing for something.
And they use the example of Whole Foods.
Right?
Their commitment to natural and organic foods.
Has definitely turned some people off.
It has.
But they've also created a very loyal customer base.
Yeah.
Or think about like a local sandwich shop
Okay.
that closes when they run out of bread.
I love that.
They're not going to compromise.
No.
on-
And that clarity of purpose
Yes.
attracts a dedicated following.
A dedicated following.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So embrace authenticity.
Yeah.
Don't try to be everything to everyone.
Nope.
And that ties into
Mission statement impossible.
mission statement impossible.
So good.
Tell us about this one.
So many mission statements are just empty words.
Empty words.
Yeah. They don't reflect the reality.
Of how a business operates.
Exactly.
Or what they stand for.
It's all about actions.
Actions speak louder than words.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, and they give this hilarious example
Oh, yeah.
of this like
Verbose.
mission statement.
That's totally forgettable
Completely detached.
from reality.
Okay, and this next piece of advice.
Is ignore the real world.
The real world.
A little bit rebellious.
I love it.
I know, right?
What's the thinking behind this?
So they argue that the real world
Yeah.
is an excuse for inaction.
Okay.
Maintaining the status quo.
Yeah.
Being pessimistic about possibilities.
Right.
And they share 37 Signal's own journey.
Yeah.
And they violated so many rules.
So-called rules.
Right. They were a fully distributed team.
Before it was cool.
Right. They didn't have salespeople.
No advertising.
They shared their secrets.
They share their secrets.
Yeah, and they're saying
What other people see as impossible.
might be achievable.
If you challenge those assumptions.
Yes.
And forge your own path.
Exactly.
I love that.
I love it.
Okay, so here's another really interesting point.
Learning from mistakes is overrated.
Learning from, okay, so we're diving deep today
Dig deep.
into some really fascinating stuff that you, our listeners, have brought to us.
Yeah, you've pointed us towards something pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's all about kind of looking at business and work.
Yeah, a whole different way of looking at business and how we work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the kind of stuff that's going to lead to some of those like light bulb moments.
Moments.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are good.
Those are the best. And I think it has the potential to be immediately useful.
Yeah.
For sure.
Sure. So you've given us the book Rework,
Yes.
and it's by the founders of 37 Signals.
Right.
The people behind Basecamp.
Please, Cam. Yeah.
And what I think is really cool right off the bat is their own story.
I think so too.
I mean, since 1999, they've built this consistently profitable internet company.
Right.
And here's the thing.
Small team,
Yeah, a deliberately small team.
which is so interesting.
Just 16 people at the time of writing this book. So
Right.
they've really kind of like blazed their own trail and challenged a lot of the conventional wisdom out there.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be doing today in this deep dive.